This is Getting Past Subtitles. My name is Sean Peel.
And I'm DK Lee.
And this is it. This is the last of the episodes for...
Let's change the name of this series.
I'm like in 0.2 seconds trying to figure out what do we call this now. Because I'm sure it's not coming of age.
A family series.
Family, comedy, drama.
Something series.
Multiple genre. Yeah.
It's just a group of movies that we wanted to watch. Let's just call
The
it.
criteria was there was kids in it and adults in it. And that was basically that.
Yeah. Well...
It's like in all these movies, the anticipation was like, oh, it's definitely got to be about the kids, right? And then we watch it, and it's like, not exactly.
At least you know that we don't pre-watch these movies.
Right, yeah. We're
We
being
actually
honest.
watch it at the same time and try to figure out what it is. Okay. Some of them we do, but we let you know, right?
Clearly we did not. The only one it's like, Bori was maybe the closest to being a coming of age.
Mm-hmm.
And the other ones, Kikujiro. I mean, you could kind of make a case for Kikujiro.
I think EE too, a little bit, right?
Yeah, but there was too many
things going on.
Yeah, too many.
Yeah, Kikujiro probably more. Those like the first two were probably closest.
It's like Yi spread itself too thin with all the characters. Kikujiro, you can make an argument, but like everything was on Takeshi's character. Like I felt like he kind of took the spotlight, you know, as the movie went on. Bori was always about Bori, so I feel like, you know, like it was always about the daughter.
What you're saying is that I picked the most closest one.
Yeah. No, just for the sake of argument.
Yeah.
But yes. And then with this one, Good Morning, and the same thing. It kind of spreads itself a little too thin. Like it's really not about the kids entirely.
Yeah.
Although they do hold the most weight, I feel like,
Right.
of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make clear it's not the fault of the movies. It's just the fault of like us not
Assumed.
knowing.
Yeah.
And going into it just by looking at what it was. And just hoping that it would be, but clearly
For this movie, we got because we watched like the trailer, but it was really a clip. And
there was that one clip that really made us think that it was that like one moment where the kid is complaining about not having a TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets an argument with his parents. And it was like, surely this is a coming of age, right? Like,
but I should have known Ozu from watching his other ones too. He's not as direct, I think, in terms of like exploring themes in that kind of way.
Yeah.
I think he has a subtler, more nuanced way of going about things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we got caught.
I got the rug pulled under me.
But regardless, I do think that, Good Morning was fun. It was quite enjoyable, I think. I really love the interactions of the characters with one another and stuff.
Right.
And I guess we can, talk about that.
Definitely lighthearted. Like, watching this, in a previous episode, we did talk about Ozu with Late Spring, I think which is called. And that was more, I mean, definitely had like, it's comedy moments, but it was, we were just joking off air, like, that's probably definitely more coming of age in this movie, right? And that movie is more sort of direct about the daughter. But that movie is definitely a little more melancholic. Feels like
there's
a little more
bit of sadness there.
Yeah, it kind of explores like the journey of the daughter
And the
like,
father.
And the
all
father.
that stuff,
Yeah. It is more direct and it just kind of embodies a lot more kind of subgenres and emotions in it. Here, it does feel like more lighthearted, more kind of like a good time.
It's a lot more like, I wouldn't say happy, but everything's more positive. Like everything feels like, even if there is a moment of conflict, it's not like this doom and gloom, but it's like just a moment where people have misunderstandings and it's an opportunity for them to resolve it in a good way, rather than it is a point of like,
nobody makes like a true enemy.
It's never like a point of like real like hardship or pain or grief.
Right.
It's more like a learning like opportunity,
Yeah.
right, for these characters and stuff like that. And overall, I think the tonality of the movie was quite like happy.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the word happy, but yeah.
Because I understand exactly what you're saying. Because it's not like happy-go-lucky feeling.
Mm.
It's not necessarily. It has its joyful moments, but the constant tone is not overall like super joyful. But everything has like a very like a positive light to it.
Yeah,
you know, it's
there's a air of brevity.
Yeah.
Like a very, everything's just like a short thing. It's not like a big
Right.
thing that carries over from one thing to another. Like it's just, it happens in the moment and they're like, oh, we forget about it, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and like, there is conflict in the movie. There's a number of conflicts, but like you said, it's all kind of undercutted by like nothing is really made a huge deal. They're very like minor misunderstandings or circumstances, right? Like it can be resolved, and they are resolved in a very, very like, you know, adult manner.
Yeah, a lot of time, you know, especially that moment when there's that misunderstanding with the money and stuff
In the beginning, yep.
and like it's a very like direct confrontation she does. She just goes to the person and she's like, oh, I'm sorry about the money, like it's very embarrassing, but my like mother, you know, forgot to give me it, and that's why we didn't give it to the person for a long time.
Yeah.
And then the, you know, Hayashi, the mother, is just like, oh yeah, no problem, it's okay. And it ends. That's it.
Yeah, it ends up being very predictable, and I think maybe that's what kind of contributes to the feeling.
Yeah, it's very simple, right?
Yeah,
it's a very simple kind of conflict and resolution that's there.
Yeah, but it is funny. They're all setting up Mrs. Sadaguchi, and then the mom, she's like, I hand it to your mom. She's like, well, hand it to my mom. She would have handed it to me. She's like, I don't know what to tell you because I handed it to your mom. And she's like, I don't know what to tell you because I don't have the money.
You did buy a washing machine.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of like, you know, if you are stealing the money from us, you know, you could just like say it, you know.
Like a very roundabout way of, you know, they really beat the bush, right?
100%, yeah.
They're like,
but that's like the whole.
Yeah, that's how, you know, that's how gossip. They do. Yeah, the mom gossip, you know, trying to act nice and
right, exactly,
and you know, kind to each other, and behind their back, they're kind of like, oh yeah, you know, she's kind of judgmental. You better like pay everything back, or she's gonna make her children not talk to you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Like, okay.
Which funny, because I think to that point, I actually never really picked up that her misunderstanding about the kids was that they weren't talking to her because they thought that because of like the money situation.
Someone's not reading the subtitles.
I was. The movie was kind of long, right?
No, it wasn't.
No,
it was under 2 hours.
It was pretty short.
Yeah.
I did find out you definitely have to like read it. I like blinked once and I'm like, what are they talking about? But yeah, I pieced that together. But yeah, like it's all very straightforward.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I think what I want to talk about is like, because of that tone and the fact that like nothing is really kind of made a big deal, that whole use of it, I think feels a little bit to its detriment at times in some areas. Have you felt like did I work completely, or were some things that you're like, eh?
What do you mean?
So like
give me an example.
The biggest thing for me was probably the biggest point of the movie was the kids, right? So like Isamu and his younger brother and the older brother Minoru, they go on, they take a vow of silence, right?
Oh, yeah.
In protest because their parents won't buy them the TV, and basically like they win at the end of the movie, right?
Basically, yes.
It's like these kids who are just being like straight up kind of like disrespectful to their parents.
Yeah.
And you know, they're being rebellious in nature. And obviously the parents are upset at them, and we, you know, that is expressed in certain scenes and stuff like that. But by the end, like there's no learning.
Right.
Like, right, you know, they're not really better for that experience.
Yeah.
They get the TV and they're like, hell yeah, we win.
Yeah.
And they have it. So it's...
I do get that. I do feel like if you look at it from the kid's point of view, and like we're watching it from kind of like their their lens, I guess it does feel a bit anticlimactic because they just seem to be handed what they want, like, and they just win at the end. But for me, as I was watching it, I kind of felt like that whole parents buying the TV thing
Right.
was not so much them succumbing to the children's like rebellion and like finally like ceding to that, but I kind of saw it as like the dad, because like the scene before that, the dad like is talking with the other old dude, and he's like talking about retirement and stuff like that.
Yeah, at the bar, right?
Yeah, at the bar, and then he comes back home and he's with his wife.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like talking, and he's like kind of, and then she's like talking about like, oh, like, when are you gonna retire as well?
Yeah.
And so for me, I kind of saw that as like a moment of the dad like wanting to give the children like, what he can while he, while he's kind of like making money and being able to provide in that way. So I just kind of saw it as like his like own like whole own like desire to want to provide for the family or provide for the children while he can, and just have that kind of like victory in and of himself, rather than like, because I think beforehand, when the kids are not talking and they're rebelling against the parents, he was kind of very like not angry, but like very stern with them and scolding them and stuff.
He's very stoic.
Yeah, he's very stoic, and he's just like, like do what you want, but you're probably gonna lose. And then I think as he talks with that old man, and he's at the bar, and he sees all these people like being unemployed and kind of coming of age in another sense, becoming older, and seeing that they're kind of losing their ability to provide for their families, and how like powerless they feel in that moment. That he kind of uses that TV as a way of showing that he can still provide, and so like from the parents' point of view, it might seem like, from the kids' point of view, like if you're watching it analytically and we're just like, oh yeah, the kids just got what they want. Yeah, sure. I do feel that way as well. But I think from the parents' point of view, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I can do this for them, so I'm going to, even if even if they are technically losing to their children. But what parents don't lose their children to their children at the end of the day, right?
You're right.
So
chink to the armor.
Yeah.
No, I definitely get that too.
Yeah.
I think in the other side that I kind of saw that is the two main things is like, clear this movie is really about like intergenerational like gaps, right? Not only with like the main family, but like with other characters, it seems as well. But I think even like a broader sort of theme is like adapting to modernization and sort of a new era within the time, because this takes place like what, 50s, something like that.
I'm not sure the exact timeline of it,
but there does seem to be
it is the point where they're modernizing.
Yeah, like very clearly a technology, right?
Yeah. Technology, like washing machines, and TVs, and those are being a lot more commonplace in normal people's lives.
Like even with the guy that he was talking to, the gentleman who lost the job, and then he got a new job with the electric company, and they sell like toasters and washing machines, etc., where they buy the TV from. So there's always a constant like dynamic between this one family is like, oh, I have a washing machine, and everybody kind of like talks about it, and they're sort of a little more modern. They're like adapting to sort of a new household, right? In this new era. And there's others that are a lot more traditional and kind of are being pretty stubborn about it, right? Like the Hayashi family and like the mom and the kids. Like I mean, that adds to like the intergenerational, because the kids are like, that's what they're gonna grow up with, right? Like they're already grown up into TV from the start, with like radios and such, and so they're, even though that they're mooching it off of other people, like that's already part of their growing
what
up.
they know, yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of want to be the norm and like want them to incorporate it in their household. And so just all those things kind of like portray it too in that sense. So by the end, when they finally kind of get the TV, it's like overcoming this sort of stubborn error, right? Like this stubborn, like
exactly
traditional mentality, essentially.
Right. They're kind of relinquishing their own stubbornness to hold on to what they knew, and
exactly.
Pushing forward to like something new. I think the parents,
So pretty interesting,
because they are very like
old school.
not necessarily old school, but they kind of like have a reign on the children a lot of times, right? They're trying to make sure like they're always like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? And making sure, or trying to make sure like, don't go watch TV, or when they're not eating, it's like making sure they're like, okay, fine, if you don't want to eat, then you're not going to eat anything.
Do you want seconds? Or like, no, you can't have seconds.
And like, in that way, like at the end you see the parents kind of folding and letting the children win in that sense,
right,
and welcoming that new wave of whatever, maybe
self-independence,
a new wave of modernity, maybe, or just
I mean, that has a lot to do with it too, right? Like the way you are a parent, or like your parental like principles, right? I guess you could say it is more traditional to be more direct and like have a finer grasp and just directing your kid's life in that way. I've supported by even the grandmother who's super judgmental on her daughter when she finds out that she didn't hand her the money, and Miss Higuchi is like, my mother of mine is such an old goose, whatever, and she's like, my daughter, like,
she thinks she knows everything.
She thinks she's better, got this stupid husband of hers, like there's a very direct and like personal link towards raising your kids, right? And then for them it's like they have that, but then by the end they kind of loosen up on that for the kids, right?
And then the kid that keeps on pooping.
What was it? The one that pees his pants?
Yeah, Koze, yeah. Well, he's trying to fart and he poops.
Oh.
He's sharding every time. Because they're doing that like
they're eating
farting thing, farting on command thing.
Yep.
So like he's trying to like fit in with the group, and he never can. He just sharts every time.
Can you buy more pants, please? Again?
Yeah.
And they're eating like the root, or like it's like I forget what it is.
Pumice stone or something like that. Yeah.
It's a scene where they're in their room and he's like shaving it down.
Yeah. A lot of scenes I really like, just like the composition that Ozu has in so many of his scenes. It's almost symmetrical all the time, but also like it has a very pleasing like look to it. Just when you watch it, when you're watching it, like your eyes always know where to go, and like the action within the scene is very calculated, but it feels right. Like, every moment feels very right, and it's very clear to the audience what you're watching and who's in the who's main in that scene and what's going on and what's happening. And he likes to put the characters like in the middle a lot of times, right? Center of focus. And it gives a very like harmonious feel to it.
Right, yeah. There is it is funny like thinking back to like late spring in this movie, because they're very one-to-one. Like the way that he shoots is always consistent in style.
Yeah.
But like I said, it is very good. It is very just like thinking the way that he shoots at a house, the way that he takes the house as a set and like is able to shoot it, and it's always perfect. Like you said, it always feels just rightly intentional the way that he's able to like put a family in a specific room for like a dinner time, or somebody's in the kitchen, or specifically like if they're in their room, you know.
And just like like using the set and using those houses, and especially like those Japanese houses have like those sliding doors and
like corridors
and like, you know, from the outside you kind of have to like walk up to that, you know,
the little
to the floor, because the floor is raised up and stuff. And you know, he uses it very effectively in a, you know, the set effectively in a way that makes the shot look interesting, as well as having the characters be in specific places, you know, and it feel right. There's this one scene near the end when I think the mother's like talking about the fact that like the kids come in and they're like, "Oh, you bought us a TV," and then the mom's like, "Yeah, your father bought the TV." And while she's saying that, the aunt is in the background and she like walks by behind her and then like looks towards the camera and then like goes back into the, I guess, the kitchen. And like even just like those very subtle things that are very calculated that kind of add that like I don't know, that touch of like feeling like the family is kind of all like listening into this conversation, right? Like the aunt is clearly kind of important in that family, as well as, you know, and she's also the one that's like was looking for them and stuff, and just that like those little like moments really add up to like making the family feel cohesive, even though they might not be talking, or they might not be, you know, the loudest, or they might not always speak up. Like there's those like little moments to show that they are like in tune with each other,
right? Yeah,
you know.
No, 100% agree. Yeah, it's also very good to know like the layout of the house. I feel like the way that he shoots it, I can already know like what the house looks like from the inside.
Yeah.
And particularly in this movie, because there's a lot of family in this small house,
and all the houses seem like they're the same.
They're all they always
same. Like
I feel like it was
terms
a
of
giant puzzle in this movie, because it all felt like he had 4 squares, like in a giant kind of square, right? And he always used like the same like wide shot when characters would cross between houses, right? He always like put it in the middle of like that one road,
that crossroad,
right? Yeah. And that was kind of like establishing your home
with the hill overlooking the houses and stuff. You know?
Yeah. And also, like you said, a big thing too is the neighbors go to and from a lot of each other's houses. So a lot of times we're watching it from that little porch area where like the slider doors are open and we can see between like the house that we're in and the house across, right? And so a lot of times it's used of like there's a character in the foreground in their house and like the neighbor that's actually in their house, especially in the beginning when they're trying to sneak for TV, right? And he's like, you know, what's up, Kozu? And we're like, that's like the one that Kozu was, or one of the, no, actually, I think it was Minoru who was reading English, and he kept going back and forth to check if his like mom was around, you know, and then he sprints over to the neighbor's house to watch TV.
Yeah.
So it all felt really like nicely cohesive, and I always knew where I was, even though like it did feel like there was a lot going on. I'd say it did a really good job of kind of solving this Rubik's Cube of the suburb, you know. But you know, it is the overall feeling that like cinematography wise of Ozu is always like he always like, because it's always static, right? Because I just feel like, oh, he puts the camera here for a reason. It's like perfect for, it's like made specifically for what that shot is all the time, you know, when it's like, oh, the two sons are like being rebellious in their silent era, and they're just like changing, like they're exchanging hand signs at their desk, you know, or if it's like a family dinner time, like everything just feels really perfectly made for like the specific shot in this scene, you know.
Yeah, like you can learn so much about composition, I think, from Ozu. Just like he's not afraid to just let the camera stay in one place and not move it. Yeah. And I think that's something that like these days is very rare. Like
exactly.
Like people are like people can't wait to move the camera these days. And I think that something that Ozu does is like it's okay to put it here and let the action unfold,
Right.
you know. And he's confident in his story to be like, yeah, I know, yeah, like I know what I'm doing, I know what I want. And I think that's the biggest like evidence of his confidence is the fact that he just puts it in one place and he knows that, you know, he's gonna get everything he needs and he doesn't have to move the camera.
Right.
Where, you know, these days I feel like they just move it for the sake of moving it, and it's like, what's the point of that movement?
Sure. Yeah, watching this movie, watching Ozu definitely makes you realize like how much movement kind of feels like a cop out in a sense. Because you can watch a scene and I'm like, oh, I could think of like moving the camera here, like doing any other shot for that scene to like, I don't know, make it more interesting or like stylized or something. But it's like, it's not really needed. Like it really adds to like the intentionality of him. Like, oh, they're having a conversation here, or we just need to see this character doing this one thing here. And it's just like, all we need is the camera to look that way, you know?
And I'm not saying that you can't have movement or like movement is bad, but I'm just saying like I think he knows, like he's sure of himself to leave the camera where it is. Yeah. Or like you know, if there is a good reason to move it, I'm sure he would. But I think but a lot of it, the stories that he tackles lends themselves to not having to move the camera as well. Yeah. So I think that's another thing. But overall, I think that, you know, just in general, the climate of people making movies these days, I think, is trending towards just, oh, let's move it as much as possible, or let's make it. Because movement is innately interesting. Yeah. So I think they use that to try to cover up the uninteresting story, right? Sure. Yeah. Whereas I think sometimes, you know, movement can actually add to the interest of the story if it, you know, synergizes well together. But,
right. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Overcompensating.
Sometimes, yeah.
Steady cam.
Right.
And that's it. Yeah. Any other? What was your most, to you, your most interesting or like your favorite? I guess I would say, I don't know if I want to say characters or like little story in the movie.
My favorite actually is the aunt and the English teacher.
Damn it!
Stop copying me, man.
Hey, I asked first.
Oh, I said it, so. But yeah, like their arc is very subtle in the movie, right? It's not like oh, hey, we're in love with each other kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the beauty of the story, like the subtext of it, like exactly the just their glances at each other, and like whenever she visits his house to like, you know, ask for certain things, you know, it's actually, I think, the main theme of the movie as well, because, you know, the title of the movie is Ohio or not Ohio, is it Ohio?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, oh, good morning or whatever, and the whole like thread of the movie, and even, you know, the exposition that they have is like the kids think that, you know, all these like small daily like you know, words and things, exchanges that people do is like meaningless and useless and pointless, and it's just much. They just talk too much. But you know, the English teacher, when he's talking with his sister later, like talks about like the fact that like it's actually very important that
like, wouldn't life be boring without those things?
Like we talk about these things, and the sister's like, you know, but sometimes you need to like, you know, say those important things and actually, you know, get to what you want to say.
Right.
And like even the English teacher is like, oh yeah, like
don't you enjoy?
These words are like lubricant, like kind of like, you know, softening everything and you know, making everything smooth. And I what I love about the arc is actually the very end, when they're at the railroad station or whatever. Yeah. And the aunt and the teacher kind of meet together, and lo and behold, they strike up a conversation, and all he talks about is the weather and how nice the day is. And what I can tell from that is just like the fact that like the subtext of that is like, oh, like we like each other, you know, we're kind of because of how she reciprocates everything that he says, and it's like, oh yeah, like it is interesting, the pattern is interesting. Oh man, the day is really nice, and just the fact that they're able to say the things that they want to say without having to say the things that they say.
Exactly.
Is like the point of the movie, I think.
Right.
You know, like that kind of that point of maturity where the kids don't understand is that, right? Like the fact that sometimes like there are words that, you know, you say that is the same things that you say every day, but it can mean completely different things.
Right.
If you understand, like, you know, where the people are at those different points in time.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was such a beautifully done scene, just like culminating from the beginning when they first meet, or not first meet, but like when they first talk in the movie.
When we see them interact.
Yeah, when we see them interact, and how like those little subtle things where, you know, like she goes to ask like if the kids, like, you know, came to the English teacher's house, you know, after they ran away or whatever. All those little like moments of interaction where, and then every time she leaves, the sister's like, oh, like you guys look good
like,
together,
bro, you want her, bro.
You know, like those kind of things. And the sister's like, you're gonna go out, look for the kids, right? And he's like, oh, am I? I guess I'm gonna go look for the kids now.
It's like, what are you doing here? Yeah,
and you know, little things like that. And when he brings the kids back to the house, and the whole family is like surrounding the place, and just like I don't know if it's intentional, but like, you know, the aunt kind of has a smile on her face the whole time. It's
but she always has that
she does
smile.
But you know, that's the endearing part of her character, right? That's the whole part of her character. So
she is like the angel of all angels, the aunt.
Yeah,
I swear. No, but I also thought it was really great too that when, like you said, that, which is actually a really awesome point. Like whenever they interact, they just speak the plain dialogue that's reinforcing. I think it's like, you know, nice weather. Like, how are you doing?
Or like, oh yeah, you know, you're bringing the translations for that thing.
It's
or
all
whatever.
pretty like polite, direct, like
literally
it's all
mundane, like mundane, like things that you talk about all the time, right? Like the boring things that the kids are like, oh, you talk too much about.
Exactly.
Those are literally what they say the whole time.
Yeah,
right? when they talk to each other.
But it is like, it is about how they are interacting with each other, and there is very clear genuinity between them.
Genuinity,
right?
Is that a new word?
Is that a word? I'm making that up. Coin.
Genuinity. Yeah.
It's a very genuine, like like interaction and conversation that they're having, and they are putting like, you know, real feelings and real politeness. You just see like the dumb grins on both of their faces when they interact, and it is pretty clear to kind of read the room there, right? But even with everything around them, but particularly with the guy, because in that scene before, when the two sons are there and they're silent, he's like, why are you guys quiet today? But before the aunt comes, the other neighbor comes asking about like open like vacancies to rent out because she wants to move away from the mom gossip.
Yeah.
Whatever. And he is like cold, bro. He is stone cold to the way he talks to her. And then once the aunt comes directly after, he's like, hi,
how can I help you?
How's it going? Yeah, I have your paperwork right here.
You want to just take half of it first? You know, like
you know, it's just the flip of a coin immediately, right?
And just that, like it's a same kind of mundane talk, but just how it changes 180.
Yeah. So there is that, and it everything really kind of supports that little story that's there. I do like it a lot. It's really good. Also, I think Isamu is the best, in my opinion. Just
why?
That man dresses dapper.
Yo, he does look nice though.
That man was thugging, bro. When he went out with the hat and the scarf, I was like,
and then he completely blows off the woman.
He had ribs. He is effortlessly.
Even when he walks, he has swag.
Right? He's like, man is goated.
I love the part when they ran away and they, Minoru is like, oh, get some more rice or whatever, and he like walks up the hill.
Oh, the side dishes.
Oh, the side dishes, and then he like spots the comb, and he just backtracks, and he just goes back down. It's like, oh shoot.
He sits there, and he looks at his hand like,
he's like,
in rice,
oh no,
which is like the evidence. It's like equal to him having a gun in his hand.
Exactly.
He's
like crap. This is not gonna be going good.
It's
for
not
me.
gonna end well. Let me just Yo, leave the evidence there. Leave it there. They leave the food there.
My favorite part of Isamu though is the very end when the dad comes and he's like, oh, like, you gotta study now, you're gonna be good now, and then
he's like, he ain't mad.
Yeah, he's like, he's lying. I can see it in his grin.
He's smiling. That was cool. That was really good.
Yeah.
Classic show don't tell. Almost reverse logic. Yeah. I can see it in his mind. He's like hula hooping.
Yeah.
No, I was like, I love the "I love you" bit. Like, it's such a smart little like mechanic.
Right.
He's like, go study English. And he's like, okay, Maza, I go study. He's like, I love you, and leaves. And you're like, oh, like it's English. And then when they're leaving to watch the TV, he's like, I love you. And
well, after they get scolded by the mother, and then they have to leave.
They have to leave.
And then he says, I love you to the woman.
Realize that's the only English word that he knows. And he just says it, and then it comes back like appropriately at the end.
Yeah.
Like, Mother, I love you. I was like, it's so good.
Yeah. It's a good little bit thing.
Little tidbit.
Yeah. For sure.
I love that kid. Yeah, the whole farting bit is just like silly. Little sound effect. I thought it's a toss up, man. It's between Isamu or Koze's dad, who's like the fart king.
Oh yeah,
the fart master, right?
Yeah.
He like uses it to call his wife over.
He's like, you called? No.
He does like, he's like, you called? Yeah, actually, I'm going to town. Do you want any sweets? And she's like, yeah.
So dumb.
It's so funny. And then they're doing like the exercises on the top of the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
It's like farting to the beat. Great character.
Fart jokes, who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Still in fashion. Never gets old. Nah. Yeah, I think overall, just very enjoyable movie at the end of the day. It was a funny twist actually to see Late Spring, who with the dad who's in this movie, who also plays the father for the Hayashis. But he's a very, like we said, like stoic, very stern father, very like classic kind of man of the household, which is like complete 180 to his character from Late Spring. He's a very soft, very understanding.
There's a softness to him here too. I think it's a little more, but it's like hidden, right? It's hidden behind
I definitely picked up on it, like particularly when they were eating dinner and the kids were being rebellious. That's when the lunch money scene was. They try to express like we need lunch money for school, but they didn't want to say it. There's a little bit of that from coming from him. And I was like, oh, I recognize him now. But in other cases, I was like, yeah, it's a nice departure from when I last saw him.
Yeah.
Right. Which is cool.
Good characters.
Pretty overall enjoy movie.
Yeah.
What did you think about did you watch the movie in color, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of, because this is his second film that's in color that he made after Equinox Flower, which came out the year before. And so the Late Spring we saw in black and white. How did you think this kind of looked?
I think it looked really good. Like just the color choices.
Yeah.
It really popped. A lot of the color choices that he made just popped, and it was very effective.
Yeah.
Like the green hills and the brown houses and the blue, the rooftops and like you said, like the characters' clothing, like the kids' clothing, dapper clothing,
that scarf, bro.
All of that worked really well. I think, I would be surprised. I'm surprised at just how like elegant the color is in this movie.
It looks so rich
For like his second time doing it, you know.
I would say I watched this on HBO Max. If you did, right? I was reading that it's actually this was his first U.S. Theatrical release, which actually came out in black and white in the U.S., but it was released in color in Japan. This is definitely like 4K restored version that was out, and it's probably like the best restoration I've ever seen.
Yeah, it looks crisp.
It looks so good. I was pausing it in like the details that I could see, which is pretty crazy, you know. But like the color was really awesome. Everything really almost looked like a painting, to be honest. Like everything was like really rich in color. Everything was like just perfect to the scene. Just overall pretty. Like I was honestly kind of astounded watching it. I didn't think this movie could look so good, you know?
Yeah.
So
there's a kind of simple beauty to his movies, like simplicity in the stories, but also just the shot, like the framing and the mise en scène and the simplicity of that. But still, like, there's so much beauty to be seen in those shots.
Yeah. Favorite scene in the movie?
I told you, the English teacher and the aunt at the very end when they're at the train station.
Oh, that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, actually, my favorite one was when the father comes back home that night, and no, it was actually during the day, and the guy who got the job at the electric company, he was like, yeah, you want to take like the pamphlets to kind of like shop through, and he's like, yeah, we should buy something to congratulate you on getting your job. And then he leaves to grab more pamphlets for them, and him and his wife, they're like sitting, and he's like, I think it's about time you should think about retirement. And it's like that's like the only melancholic moment in the movie, I felt like, but it was like really was like perfectly placed and kind of hit deep, you know. And he then is more by himself because the wife, I think, leaves, and he's just like kind of like genuinely thinks about it.
TV.
Yeah. It just like was really impactful because I think I read anybody, the father has the less influence in the movie. Like he's not there a lot, and he just plays a pretty simple role, but the ending has a pretty big impact because of him. And this was like kind of the scene that he owned himself, you know? And I don't know, it just, that moment kind of stuck with me out of everything else.
Yeah.
So, and Kozu's dad, when he's drunk and he went into the wrong house.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, rip.
Yeah, that's a little cute scene.
Yeah, no, but I think that was definitely my favorite little beat, for sure. Yeah, anything else to add?
No, I think we covered most of it.
Yeah. Ozu's films still remain pretty good.
Yes.
I think to wrap up, if you want to kind of talk about the movies that we watched in general, I guess not even a perfectly cohesive series, but out of the four, like, how did you think this kind of all went down?
I mean, I enjoyed, I think, all of them. All the movies that we watched were good in their own
sense.
Yeah, in their own sense. Obviously kind of hit or miss in terms of theme, but I think in terms of the films themselves, they tackled very different things, but they all had a very well-paced and interesting story. And they all had something to offer, and really, like every time I watched the movie, I thought, wow, this is something, new or something cool to see.
Yeah.
Like the road trip in Kikujiro, or like the dynamics of the different family members in E and this one, just like the harmonious, simplistic beauty in this movie, and Pori, just like that innocence and charm from that one character, and how that all comes together. All of the movies were very good to watch.
Right.
I think very fulfilling to watch, and that's kind of rare in our series. Sometimes we get some very misses, but overall, the series was actually quite good in terms of that.
Yeah, I think because the series thematically didn't turn out, we were able to watch each movie sort of individually, right? We were kind of able to watch it and interpret it and have a individual perspective on each one as their own movie because of that, which really helped. Every movie here was pretty much a hit. I think Body was maybe my least particular favorite, but even Body wasn't necessarily bad either, right? Because it was pretty okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think a common through line is these are all sort of about families, but it's really about a member or members of the family instead of the entire family unit, So it's let's take a look at this individual person's life.
Yeah, it's more, we should just name it a family drama thing.
Right, yeah, basically. So kind of explores the individuals in a family unit outside of, that's sort of the thread. But I think, pretty good. Can't wait to talk about Ozu more in the future. But for the next series, it is currently a new year at the time of recording. Well, we're at the end of January, but it lines up with a tradition somehow.
Yes.
Retrospective!
Yeah. Every year we do a retrospective on a director, and this year, since we've done it for now we've done it for Bong Joon-ho, Kurosawa, Park Chan-wook, and then this is going to be our fourth.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce us to our director of the year?
I won't butcher the name this time, I swear. We will be talking about Hayashi, right? And pretty interesting. He is, we talked about way back now. It's crazy to think
it's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Right? If anybody watches us and has been with us for a long time, A Time to Live and A Time to Die, right? Is one of his movies that we covered during, what series was that?
I'm like, oh, that was the coming of age. I think it was some kind of family thing. I would like to think maybe.
You might be right.
I might be completely wrong.
I have an official list somewhere, but I would.
We have the official list somewhere,
but yeah, it was part of. I think it had to be a family series or something. But yeah, that was that's the only movie that we covered, which actually turned out really good.
Yeah,
I think it's one of our favorites, pretty much ever. I remember talking very favorably towards the movie. It was really good. So
a lot of good things to say about it.
Yeah. So we knew we wanted to talk about someone of from China, Hong Kong or Taiwanese or somewhere in that region as a director, because we already did 2 Koreans now,
and
2 South Koreans,
Japanese
and a Japanese
director.
So just wanted to kind of broaden it. So out of the people that we talked about, I think Hayashi maybe has the most interesting kind of catalog. Just even coming from A Time to Live, A Time to Die, I think that's that kind of movie I wanted to revisit. So to talk about his other movies should be interesting. We'll be doing 5. Right?
Is it 5?
Is it 5?
Yeah, I think it is 5. Yeah,
it is 5. Yeah. And they span a long time. He's been from the 80s to the 21st century.
Yeah.
So I'll go through the list in chronological order. We always do the first and last movie. So his first movie was Cute Girl, 1980. And we'll be doing City of Sadness from 1989. Goodbye South Goodbye from 1996. We'll be doing Millennium Mambo in 2001. And then we'll be doing his last film that he directed, The Assassin, in 2015. He's still directing. I think there's an upcoming movie. I don't know what it's called. So he's still got skin in the game. Although he is pretty sparse, it seems like. But yeah, this should be pretty interesting to talk about.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, so pretty looking forward to it. We'll start off in that list specifically. So Cute Girl will be first.
And we'll go in chronological order.
Yeah, all the way through the assassin. So these are great. We enjoy the retrospectives.
No.
So this will be something pretty neat to go through. But yeah, we will catch you guys next week for Cute Girl. Peace.
Bye.